As an international student, choosing a university in the United States can be a stressful process. I am going to offer 5 things you may want to consider when choosing a university in the United States. Hey guys, it's me, Timon from Go Study WIU, an agency that helps international students easily transition to the Western Illinois University right here in the United States. In episode 1 of Access USA Degree, I gave you 5 reasons why you should get your degree in the United States. In this episode, I am going to offer 5 things you should consider when choosing a university in the United States. But before we get into that, there's one thing that you must consider before everything else. You must allow yourself enough time to do your research. Ideally, you want to have at least 12 to 18 months to do that. So, make sure you're not making a rush decision and you have way more than enough time to do your research. Okay, so let's get into it. Here's the first thing you should consider when choosing a university in the United States as an international student: your academic major. The reason why I say this is because you have to obviously know what you may want to be studying, what degree you may want to pursue, and you can get an idea of what you may want to do based on your career goal or what's trending or opportunities that you see out there that you may want to explore. So you definitely want to gauge what you want to do or choose your major based on those things. Another thing you'd want to consider is accreditation. Now, what is accreditation? Accreditation is basically a certification that says that this particular university has met certain academic standards. So it is not universal. There are many different accreditation boards based on what major you're into. But you want to consider that because some other universities, let's say you want to go on to do your master's, they may not accept certain types of accredited degrees or certain university credits. There are even some countries that do not accept certificates or degrees from other schools. So you may want to know, first of all, whether or not that university is accredited, and if the university that you're going to move on to after or the place that you may want to work will accept that particular accreditation. Another thing you'd want to consider within your academic major is what type of degree you want to get. Some people may just want to get an associate's degree, which is typically 2 years. Some people may choose to get an undergrad degree. It is typically considered your entry-level degree for a university student. That degree typically can last up to 4 years. And then there are the graduate degrees, like your master's degrees, that sometimes they go up to 2 years. It can be less. And then there are other degrees like doctorates and so forth that last for much longer. But you definitely have to have an idea as to what type of degree I want to get so you can know which university to choose. Now, after you've decided what type of degree you want to get, you have to consider the admissions process. Generally, admissions into an undergrad program, it's basically just a simple acceptance. That's basically all you need. But in cases of a graduate degree, you may need some more things to get in. You may need a GRE score. You may need a GMAT exam score. There are other prerequisites that you may need to get into a master's program. But an undergrad program is typically a general acceptance into a university based on maybe your high school grades or maybe your associate degree grades that you've gotten before you applied. So those are some of the major things you want to consider when thinking about your academic major. Now, added to this, you have to know what that particular university requires of you. Some universities do not require certain things to get in, while others do. So know the specific requirement of that particular university that you're doing your research into, or you're looking into, or you're interested in. So consideration number 2, affordability, the cost of getting that degree. You definitely want to have an idea as to what it would take to get that degree at that particular university. Many universities have different costs, so you would want to know the specific cost for that particular university. Now, one thing to consider is that whenever you see those prices being quoted, they are mostly quoted in US dollars. So do not assume that it is in your currency, but it might be, or most likely is, in US dollars. Now, when I say costs, what do I mean? Do I only mean tuition that you pay to the university directly? No, I don't, because there are many other things that you would have to get as an international student in order to get into a university here in the US. You would need to consider the cost that it takes to get your F1 visa. So you would need to know what exactly is the process. Some countries have different processes for getting those visas. You may have to travel to another country to get that visa. So you definitely want to understand what it takes to get that visa. That is a cost that you would not be able to escape because you have to get that particular visa. Another major thing that you have to consider is that there are going to be living expenses that you have to take care of when you're in the US. So you would have to have an idea. So what I would suggest you do is that you look into the area that you want to study, the city that the university is located in, look at the general cost of living there, and you would be able to gauge at least, all right, because for instance, you wouldn't know how much it costs for an electricity bill, let's say, for instance, if you were to live on your own. So you would want to know, have an idea of what that would cost based on the city that you're going to be studying in. Some other universities have options where you can live in a dorm situation where it's just one included cost. So that would definitely have to be factored into your general costing of getting your degree. So living expenses not only includes your rent, but it also includes food, clothing. Based on where you live, you would definitely need clothing that suits that particular environment. And there are other expenses. Maybe you might have to commute. So you might have to think about transportation. And you would have to think about other things that are miscellaneous expenses. I'm pretty sure you'll want to be entertained at some point. So you'd have to consider that in your costing. Another thing that is important to consider is that over the years, if you're going to be here for a prolonged period of time, cost changes. So things would increase. So you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you don't have any flexibility whatsoever with your cost. Just in case the price goes up, you have to be able to afford living here. Typically, universities located in the middle of the country, in the middle of the US, are generally less expensive. So you'd want to consider where your university is located. And as I said, you want to do your research into the town that it's located in to determine what it's going to cost. Now, the reason why this is so important is because you would have to show that you have proof of the finances needed in order to live here comfortably. So the university in most cases would ask you for a financial statement that proves that you have the financial backing in order to live here and not be a burden. So you don't want to be caught off guard with other costs when you get here and you have to return to your home country. So you have to take all of those into consideration even before you come to the US. Consideration number 3, location. America is a huge place, so you have to consider where the university is located and what type of weather conditions are going to be found there. So there are some instances where some states are very cold or some locations are very cold, as opposed to some others that are very warm or hot. Or there are even instances where some states or some locations go from cold to hot to cold, back and forth. So you have to understand what conditions exist in that particular state or in that particular town where the university is located. Another thing that you have to consider is that there are threats that are particular to certain regions of the US. So let's say, for instance, you want to study in Florida. Florida is very prone to hurricanes, as opposed to, let's say, Texas, who are in these kind of places, you find a lot of tornadoes. So those are things that you want to consider even before you move or choose a university in the United States. Another thing with regards to location is environment. Some people may want to be in a location where they have mountains or they have a nice scenic view, and that might be very important to them. So you would want to choose a university that suits that particular type of environment. Whereas you may want to be in a university that is closer to the beach or it's in a warm area where you don't have to worry about any mountains or so, but you might like beaches and so, or lakes, or even some people like being in an urban setting or a city, a big city where, it's bustling and that's the kind of environment they enjoy. So you would have to consider that, and that all plays into the environment and what type of place you'd like to study in. A unique thing about American universities is that there are a lot of them that are located in very small towns. So in a lot of instances, the university is basically the main driving force behind the town. So if that makes it easier for you, it would help with your transition, studying in a university in a smaller town. Also, cost of living and all of that is usually cheaper in smaller towns. Another important thing about location is that based on where you're located, there are different opportunities that you can get that you won't get otherwise. So some big cities have jobs that you wouldn't find in a small town, whereas in small towns there are other opportunities based on what you want to do that lends itself better to that particular type of career opportunity. So you definitely want to consider what is your plan after you graduate and how that area suits into what I want to do. Now, obviously you're in the United States and you can obviously move to wherever you want. So it is not a huge problem, but if you were to get established in a particular town and you're familiar with it already, it makes it easier to transition when you're finding a job. Another thing also associated with location is extracurricular activities. Some people may want to go skiing, while others, as I said, may want to go to the beach. And there are people who want to do different things as extracurricular activities. Those add a nice balance to your college life, and it makes it easier to transition based on what you want to do and how it helps you to adapt to the society and where you are. So if you feel like you're very cold all the time, you don't want to go skiing, it may make you miserable. So you may want to look at a location that suits that particular type of extracurricular activity that you like. And finally, on the location, there are some people who want to live in a community that is totally different from where they came from. So you may want to live in a community where you can gain new experiences, while there are others who may prefer to live in a community where it's familiar to them. So there's a lot of immigrant communities or a lot of people who come here to the US and establish communities where you may feel more comfortable because they are the same type of people that you've been around all your life, and it makes you more comfortable. So consider what type of community you wish to live in, do your research, and see if that is the right place for you. If you prefer to try a new place that isn't familiar to you, that even makes the experience more exciting. So before I move on to tip number 4, I want you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell so that you can know when I put out a different episode. Also, most importantly, share this video with a friend. Okay, so consideration number 4, on-campus facilities. One of the most important on-campus facility, aside from the classrooms and stuff, would be your living situation. Where would you live? Are there dorms that you can live in and afford? Or do you have to live off campus and commute to school? Now, you'd have to understand if you're going to commute, you need to know how you get there, how far it is from where the university is located. But in most instances, communities develop around the universities, so there are housing available pretty close to the university. And there's generally systems where you find buses that run from apartment complexes to the university. So you definitely want to consider what situation you'd want to live in. There are benefits to both, so I wouldn't be particularly biased to any particular living situation. Sometimes the dorm situation fits you best because you have all of the amenities located there that you want to use, whereas you'd prefer a more independent living style in an off-campus situation. One of the things you'd want to consider about the campus facility is the size of the classrooms. Now, this would be important for people who need that intimate type of learning experience. So very big universities have huge classes with hundreds of students in one particular class. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to get the teacher's attention if you're in a huge class like that. So you might want to go to a smaller university that offers a more intimate experience with your professor. You can talk to them, you can get to know them one-on-one, and it helps you with your learning experience and your transition. So know the size of the university in terms of the teacher to student ratio. That is very important for a lot of people. But aside from the benefits of a small class or a small university size setting, there's a lot of benefits to large universities. For instance, in larger universities, you'd get to meet a lot more international students than you may meet in a small university. Because the outreach is bigger and the community is bigger in the larger universities, you sometimes get to even meet people from your own country that you may not have even met if you didn't move to this particular university. So you'd want to consider the size of the university in terms of who you'd get to be around also. If that makes you more comfortable, then that is the perfect fit for you. Something that is very important in on-campus facility, and it falls under this category, is your ability to contact the university. Now, you'll want to be sure that you're contacting the right department or the right admissions office. Some universities, because they are bigger, they have different admissions office based on the type of degree you're getting. So if you're getting an undergrad degree, you may have to contact another admissions office as opposed to getting a graduate degree. So you'd want to be very sure that they have the facilities available where you can contact someone and speak with them, send them emails, and do whatever you need to do to clarify any questions that you may have. And finally, on the on-campus facilities, you'll want to think about the amenities that the university offers. Some universities have very nice state-of-the-art gyms that students get to use. They have intramural facilities where students can go play sports and compete among other students. And they have different organizations that help students to transition easier. So definitely think about that. If you're a person who needs that type of social environment where you need to meet with others and to get to talk to people, you'll want to consider that. If you really like exercising or you like a particular type of sport, you'll want to consider what type of facilities the university has that makes your life more comfortable. Consideration number 5, you definitely want to consider what type of career and other services the university provides. Now, some universities have a career center where you can get coaching on how to write resumes, how to write your cover letters, to do mock interviews, maybe how to dress for an interview. There's a lot of different things you can get as a support system in the career services department. Now, there's also other things like writing assistance, like different things that you may need to be better at what you do at the university and to succeed in your academic pursuit. So you definitely want to consider what support services are there that spans outside of just the academic things that you need to do. Other support services that you may want to think about are international organizations that are there at the university. Some universities have international organizations based on a particular region. Some have it based on a particular culture. So you definitely want to think about who would I meet there and what other organizations they have that I can get involved in or, share my culture with. So that is definitely a consideration that you should take into mind. Another thing that you may want to think about, not because you're an international student, you don't want to get involved in other organizations that are primarily based in the US, like sororities and fraternities. So you may want to get involved in those. So you might want to think about, okay, well, what sororities or fraternities they have. A lot of sororities or fraternities have international connections. They have a lot of national connections within the US also. But it helps you when you leave university to use those networks that you've made in those types of organizations to help you with your future career. One of the most important things that a lot of international students think about is scholarship opportunities, and there are offices dedicated primarily to telling you about what scholarships are available and how you can get those scholarships. I would do an entire episode on scholarships because some people don't quite understand what scholarships are, so I would explain those in another episode, but you would definitely want to consider what scholarships the university offers. If there's an office primarily dedicated to sharing information about scholarships that you can use to lessen your cost while you're here as a student in the university. So as usual, I have a bonus tip for you. But before I do that, I'd like you to post your comment or question below this video so that I can have an idea as to things you may want to hear me cover in a different episode, or maybe even something that I've said that I didn't explain quite in a way that you understand, that I can give you some more explanation on. So post your comment or your question. Here's bonus tip number 6. What are your plans after you graduate? I briefly mentioned it earlier, but one of the things you want to consider is, am I going to get another degree while I'm here? So am I going to get my undergrad and then go to my master's degree? Or am I going to be looking for a job? Is that city where you're living now a good hunting ground for employers? So employers are actually actively looking for people to employ. So is that a place where employers actually go to find people? Or do you have to do all of the searching on your own in order to find a job opportunity? Also, is it a good place to network? Even though you may not get a job as soon as you leave school, there are opportunities to network so that you can possibly find a job later on. So, is that particular city that you're getting your degree in a good place to do that? So those are things that you definitely want to take into consideration when you're choosing a university. So bear that in mind and be sure to think about all of the different things that I noted so that you have a better idea as to how to choose a university in the United States as an international student. So those are the 5 things that I think you should consider as an international student when choosing a university in the United States. Take those into mind and make the best choice. So thank you for watching. And before you leave, don't forget to hit that notification button, subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and share my video with a friend. See you in my next episode.